be our second speaker. Our second speaker is Darryl DeBond. He has begun his second pathway.
Actually, Ivania, Linda's going to give her second speech now, I believe, right? Of the two?
No, she's going to go third.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That changed. I'll just go quietly.
Okay. All right. No problem. Unless she obliges and would like to go second. Fine. All right. So let's stick with Darryl. He's in his dynamic leadership role. The speech is the speech that he's going to give today, he gave 5 years ago. And although some of you may not remember it, the purpose of the Pathway Speech Project is to present a speech on any topic, receive feedback, and apply the feedback to a second speech. So the subject is dynamic leadership. The title is The Slow Poison. Darryl DeBond, everyone. Thank you.
Fellow Toastmasters, no guests. Oh yeah, Leah, sorry, I forgot about you. Anyway, I remember reading this newspaper article a few years ago. It was a shocking story about a man named Arnold, who sadly had his 20-year-old son murdered by a teenage gang member. The story ended up being somewhat puzzling for me because I read that Arnold actually forgave his son's killer. He forgave his son's killer? Why? I grappled with that for quite a while and then finally came to the conclusion that his act of forgiveness was probably one of the most courageous acts of compassion and forgiveness that I and most everybody could ever imagine under such circumstances, right? And then shortly after that, I read this other article in the newspaper about a young man named Shaquille Smith in Chester, Pennsylvania, who was just 17 years old when he was shot in the back at a party that he was attending in the city. Apparently, an altercation broke out, but Shaquille was trying to get away from it, and he and his friends ran to the car to get in it and drive away when someone shot at the car and opened fire, and Smith has been in a wheelchair ever since. The shooter has never been identified. Shaquille does not know who pulled the trigger that put him and confined him to that wheelchair for the rest of his life. He certainly would like to, but not for the reason you and I might suspect. He has no interest in revenge. He seeks to forgive. And he's even asking the authorities to drop charges against the shooter if he comes forward. How admirable is that young man who is willing to forgive the man that shot him and put him in that wheelchair for the rest of his life. Well, fellow Toastmasters, yes, there are so many acts of compassion and forgiveness that take place in the world today, every single day, which really are a wake-up call to many of us who just see revenge for every wrong that we perceive against us. After all, how many of us, think about it, walk around for years sometimes holding grudges with a friend or family member over something silly and stupid that means nothing in the big picture of our lives? However, this courageous father, Arnold, found it in his heart to forgive his son's murderer, the ultimate act of forgiveness. This young man, Shaquille, confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his heart to forgive the person who shot him and put him there. Ladies and gentlemen, for most of us, forgiveness will not be for such extreme events, right? Instead, it will be for smaller things that we've been hiding deep inside, holding them bottled up inside, causing us hidden stress against a particular person, maybe a sibling, a parent perhaps, a friend, or even a spouse. Holding on to a grievance doesn't give you control over the offender. And it doesn't punish them. It gives them control over you and punishes you because you're the one holding on to the health harming stress and lack of peace of mind. Resentment is indeed a slow poison. There is this great saying which comes to mind. Resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for your enemy to die. Resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for your enemy to die. Yes, you're harming yourself more than the other person by holding onto resentment. Another great saying to always keep in mind that will change the way we treat other people who we perceive may have hurt us. This one I'm sure all of you have heard. To err is human, to forgive is divine. Forgiveness is something that has to come from within us. It doesn't mean you're saying what happened to cause resentment wasn't wrong or that it didn't matter. It means I choose to let go of this negative feeling towards the person whom I perceive has hurt me. Granting someone true forgiveness is not based on any conditions. The forgiven don't necessarily have to deserve it or earn it. It is an act of grace and mercy on our part. When we're ready, we should actively choose to forgive the person who's offended us, right? Move away from our role as victim and release the control and power the offending person and situation might have had in our life. Ladies and gentlemen, just think. If we all kept these guidelines in the front of our minds daily, wouldn't the world be a much better place? A lot more benign, with less stress, fighting, hatred, resentment, and pent-up anger? I sure think so. As we let go of grudges, we'll no longer define our lives by how we have been hurt. We might even find compassion and understanding. So, fellow Toastmasters, I would like to conclude by leaving you with this quote by Mahatma Gandhi. The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful speech, Darryl.